Hey everybody, this is Pissed Rhino. Doing a short video today to talk about something that I guess is confusing for some. And I don't mean to speak down on anybody, but there seems to be some misinformation on wheel size, tire size, center of gravity, and position of axle, ground clearance. So I'm going to go through a couple of things here just to see if I can help people understand a little bit better. So first, let's just pull this truck up here. So we've got this truck. It's got 64 millimeter tires on it. They are weighted, so they do smoosh a little bit. Smoosh, that's my word. So let me get my scale here. Maybe that'll help. So if you look, trying just to get it so you can see it. Well, we'll just measure as close as we can here. So from the ground up to the axle, based on this little, we'll go to the steering bracket, almost 1.5 inches, which is actually 2 inches because the scale doesn't start at the end. But for this project, we'll just say it's 1.5 inches. So how do I raise that up? How do I raise my ground clearance? So I'm at 1.5. I want to go to 3. So I go to 3. So what's changed? What's changed is the difference between the tire and the ground. What's changed is I've raised my entire vehicle. So if I want ground clearance, I have to increase the size of my tire, and my center of gravity is now up higher. So let's say that again. So if I want ground clearance, and I'm leaving everything else the same, but I want ground clearance, my center of gravity goes up, and I need something that would raise it up this high. And the only thing you can change is the wheel and tire. All right? Does everybody understand? Upper ground clearance and center of gravity goes up. They're 1-to-1. So if your axle goes up in the air, your center of gravity goes up. And you're not going to just raise the front. So please understand when I'm saying this. I mean, your center of gravity goes up. Axle goes up, center of gravity goes up. It's that simple. Okay. So next, wheel size. Let's move this out of the way. Wheel size. So this wheel is a true 1 inch. This wheel is a 1 inch, but has a larger bead lock and stuff in it, so it looks like a much larger wheel, right? So out of these two, which one is going to give you more ground clearance? This is a big old wheel. This is a little wheel. Which one's going to raise your axle up? All right, now I'll give you the answer. Neither. They're the exact same. Why? Because the tires are the exact same. Wheel doesn't mean anything. Wheel doesn't change a thing. And I had one guy post, well, if you go from a 1.9 wheel to a 2.2 wheel, guys are getting higher ground clearance at that with going to a bigger wheel. The only way they're getting more ground clearance is if the tire is bigger. So if you have a 1.9 inch wheel and you're running a 2.5 tire versus a 2.2 wheel that's running a 3.5 tire, yes, that wheel is going to give you more ground clearance because, not because of the wheel, but because of the tire. Okay? So then I have this. Look at that wheel. That is a huge wheel, right? Compared to this, look at that. Huge wheel. This is a 1.9 wheel compared to a 1. So the wheel's twice the size. So which one's taller? Which one's going to give you more ground clearance? Again, neither. They're all the same size. From top edge to top edge, top edge to top edge, top edge to top edge. These are all the same. Your center of gravity is not moving at all with these changes. The only way you could change it is by changing the diameter of the tire to raise up your vehicle. And if you do that, it raises your center of gravity because you're taller. You raise the axles to get more ground clearance. Let's just say we're adding that much ground clearance here. Look at that. That's got a lot of ground clearance. Big old wheel and tire. It's going to be huge. Your center of gravity is going to be higher. It's going to be much easier to tip with those big old tires. That's if you change nothing else. The width stays the same. The shocks stay the same. Everything up here stays the same. If you just put big old tires on it, which I've done, by the way. I can put 2.2 wheels and tires on here and have it sit way up in the air like this. That'll give me tons of ground clearance, but my center of gravity is way up there and will not make it handle as good. So how do the guys with the 10 scale and the big old wheels and tires do it? How do they not raise their center of gravity? Well, first off, they're not using a Trx4m because they're not. Trx4m is not very good with center of gravity as it stands. Even with aftermarket chassis, the center of gravity really focuses, right here. Right here. Motor, everything's right here. Servo's nice, but when you do four-wheel steering, you got them front and back, so that cancels out. So, how do they do it? Well, they drop their center of gravity. So, you can see how, Trx4m rides like this, way up in the air. So, you drop your center of gravity so that your center of gravity drops. So, I know that sounds stupid, but if you're up in the air like this and you drop your center of gravity, but you raise your wheels up to the same height, your center of gravity stays the same and you get more ground clearance. But so when you go up on wheels and tires, you have to go down in suspension. Does that make sense? Or you have to drop all that down, which it looks like the SCX24 is better at that than the Trx4m, but you can get a much bigger build out of the Trx4m. So I hope that makes sense. Bigger wheel and tire, doesn't matter really about the wheel at all. Bigger tire raises the car up, which raises your axle, which raises your center of gravity. So everything's raised up. And if you want your center of gravity to stay the same, you have to lower your chassis. So you raise your axles. And what I mean is, so here's your chassis. Way up in the air. To reduce my center of gravity, I have to bring it down. Up here, bad center of gravity. Down here, much better. So, big wheels and tires raise it up, gives you better ground clearance, but ruins your center of gravity, so you have to lower the vehicle itself, the chassis itself, so that you can retain that center of gravity. I hope that makes sense to everybody. And looking at these, wheel size doesn't matter. It just doesn't. It matters what your overall diameter is. Now, if you're just riding on wheels, no tires, sure. Going from this wheel to this wheel is a big difference if you don't have tires. But most vehicles I've seen do run on tires, so this and this are the exact same. Now you'll see the crawlers with the skinny, really tall wheels and tires. They actually cut the tire and wrap it around this wheel that's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches. Again, those are great. Your ground clearance is great. But if you had the vehicle in the same spot, your center of gravity would be horrible. But with those builds, what they're doing is they're really lowering the center of gravity with their chassis design, their extended links, their shocks. Everything's completely different, built so that they can get their center of gravity down and be able to run those big wheels and tires to get the ground clearance. So that's the game. I mean, essentially in a crawler, that is the game. The game is get your ground clearance up, get your chassis down, and balance that. And then balance the servos, balance the motor, balance your weight from front to back. That's the whole game of this. So when I build 5 of these, which I'm getting ready to build 4, when I build 4 of these, that's going to be what you change, what you test. That's your trial and error, is raising the ground clearance, dropping the center of gravity, and then balancing your weight from front to back. If you can do all that, and you have good components, you should be able to build one hell of a crawler. All right. I hope that makes sense for everybody. If not, well, maybe you should start knitting or something. Sorry, I'm being a butthead. I don't mean that. I'm just playing around. A lot of the stuff, it's geometry, it's physics. It's lower key geometry and physics, but still, that's all in play here. Now, I personally have 2 engineering degrees, tons of physics, tons of geometry, so I'm pretty well versed in it, and I take that for granted. Sometimes I just think that everybody knows this stuff, but I know it's most people don't know this stuff, especially the kids that are doing this. They'll learn it in high school and college, but if you're a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid building these crawlers, this information is going to help you out, I hope. And that's why I make these videos. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. I'm just wanting to pass on information so that somebody out there can understand it a little bit better and be able to build a better crawler and have more fun with their buddies playing out in the dirt. That's what this is all about. So I hope you learned something today. If not, great. That means you're on top of your game. But this is made for those guys that don't have this information yet. They haven't been taught this information yet. So another thing for you kids that are building these trucks, I mentioned geometry, and you're going to have geometry in high school. Maybe 1 or 2 classes, but all of this is geometry. You got to look at all the angles, all the lines. So when you start learning geometry in school, I hope that you'll correlate that to when you're doing your RC vehicles and put 2 and 2 together and go, oh, well, this is real world stuff. And because geometry is real world stuff, all the others are kind of meh. Calculus is not real world. Matter of fact, it's a mathematics all based on a non-existing number. But anyway, geometry is very important. From playing pool to building RC cars, you'll use it a lot, and you won't even know it. So once you learn it, it'll just be something that you use every day, and you just won't know it. So anyway, pay attention in that class. All the others you can sleep through, but pay attention in that class. Again, just kidding. Stay awake, pay attention, get a good education, so that you can take care of your future family. So anywho, enough of that dad talk. Wheels and tires. Wheels don't matter. Outer diameter matters. So, y'all have a great day now. Thanks for watching.